Believe, let music burn, never give up. This honestly never gets old. So Blon has been rather busy of late with Z reviews, and they recently dropped a rather Barbie themed IEM. I'm not sure if this was a coincidence, but heck, it's pink. After watching Z reviews video, yeah, it's definitely more JOJO Bizarre Adventure than Barbie. Unboxing. The sleeve of the box is a level up from the usual Blon designs, as it has some 90s Microsoft word art vibe. I mean, props to Blon, they stuck to their guns with the weird slogan of believe, let music burn, yes, no spaces, and never give up. Some points will be deducted as they left Oppoty out. So yeah, it does have a candy color scheme on the box with JOJO plastered in the center of it. The sleeve does look kinda cool in a kitschy kind of way. Turning the box to the side, you are fed with the typical information that you get on a earphone box. At the back, you get an autobiography of Z reviews and a short excerpt about Blon. Next, removing the sleeves, you see the IEMs themselves, which we will talk about in a bit. Underneath the earphones are the rather nice pink and silver cables that matches the IEM. Lastly, you get 3 packets of e-waste tips. Only the grey ones are kinda decent, the clear ones are kinda soft and flaccid. You also get a hemp drawstring bag that kinda provides zero protection as well. Build quality. The chassis of the JOJO is rather good with all these new Blons. Gone are the days of cheap garbage plastic. It's now made of a zinc alloy die-cast chassis with some 18K gold-plated bits on the front. It does feel quite solid in the hands, like properly dense and definitely ass friendly. Like you can literally sit on it and it should not break, as I demonstrate. So anyways guys, what I'm gonna do, please do not try this at home. So as you can see, the JOJOs are located on the chair, planted waiting for my ass to sit on them. They are probably having a why me moment. For science, we will proceed on. Let's go. Pretty good. You don't even feel them. It's so good that you don't even feel it. I hope it's in one piece. Importantly, I really dig the color. It is just so different from the norm these days. Earphone manufacturers are kind of like insects running away from this bug spray pink color, but I like that Blon has done it in pink. These are fresh looking, and I must say, especially when they are paired with the silver pink cables. Inside the chassis is a single dynamic driver that is made from a composite material. It does come with a 2-pin termination for easy cable swaps, which is really nice. Okay, so back to the cable. What is interesting apart from the color is that it is actually made from silver-plated oxygen-free aluminum. This isn't a combination that you hear very often. The cable is then terminated to a 3.5mm. So the choker on the cable is a little tight, but honestly quite serviceable. I do like that it's actually included in this price range. Some other brands don't really even include it on the cable. When it comes to fit is fine for the most part. It sits pretty well in my ears with nothing poking at strange angles. It just works. The cable is also not too microphonic. Sound. For this review, I actually used my reference dongle and DAP, the Lot 2 Paw S2 and the Lot 2 Paw Gold Touch Titanium to pair with the JOJO for this review. What I can say about the JOJO is that it is definitely a bassy affair, and that this is probably the most prominent feature on the JOJO. I also do find that the extension of bass is generally good, but it does have a bit too much mid-bass. Mid-range where vocals live is a little recessed, but not to the point where it sounds like it's drowning in a sea of bass and treble. There is sufficient treble to balance out the tuning. These have a thicker tonal weight and should please most new listeners. Bass is a little tricky to describe on the JOJO. It does extend low, that has ample rumble. I like the sub-bass resonance that the JOJO renders. It, however, does not tapers off quickly when it eventually reaches the mid-bass, and this causes a little pickle as the quantity of the mid-bass can be a little bit too much and does introduce some bloat. It's not super apparent in all tracks, but for some music involving acoustic guitars, it can be a little prominent. When talking about technicalities, the resolution in the bass section is average. I did notice the lack of some details in some of the music that I listen to frequently. This is also due to the excessive mid-bass that blurs out the details as well. Dynamics is actually very decent on the JOJO, which makes very nice contrast in music and thus making it interesting to listen to. Mid-range of the JOJO is really quite enjoyable. It does benefit from the thicker tonal weight, giving more body and presence to vocals. There is this velvetiness in the vocals that I absolutely enjoy. This particularly is due to the heavier bass of the JOJO. Instrument separation in the mid-range is quite decent considering the nature of bass. When it comes to details, I feel that it is decent for the price. If you are picking apart the layers and just listening to the vocals, there you'll get a very nice, sweet and detailed tone, but when you try to zero in on a supporting instrument in the periphery, it becomes a little difficult as the mid-bass from time to time does make it a little bit blurry. These are V-shaped IEMs, but I do feel that the mid-range isn't drowned out by the bass and treble. Mid-range is a frequency band where humans can hear better, so despite being slightly lesser than the bass and treble, it manages to be prominent enough in the mix. Treble. These are not dull sounding earphones and have sufficient treble energy to give an outline to the mid-range, which aids in the clarity of the overall sound. They are never really peaky or shouty. Treble here has a very polite profile, and even the minions of sibilants, crashes and cymbals isn't that grating to listen to. I think Blon has done well to balance out the bass with enough treble that adds definition to the overall sound. Soundstage. Width and height on the JOJO, it's decent at best. This is due to the quality of the mid-bass. It just basically undoes the good work that is done by the treble and mid-range, which results in an okay-ish performance in terms of width and height. Depth and positioning, depth is rather shallow here as the mid-bass bloat limits the potential of a very deep sounding depth. Positioning on the other hand is okay as the treble allows it to be distinct enough for positioning to be precise. Next, moving on to comparisons. First is the Tripowin Kailua. HBB did release the Kailua quite recently as well, and it's really rather similar in terms of signature to the JOJO. However, I do feel that the Kailua handles bass a bit better than JOJO. There is just a bit more control and less bass bloat by comparison. Mid-range is actually pretty similar between the two. Both have the lovely velvety texture that has a thicker tonal weight. Treble. The Kailua is a little airier compared to the JOJO. Extension on the Kailua is as such better on the Kailua than the JOJO, but the JOJO is more than sufficient and isn't dark sounding. But when you want to compare build, how it looks is really up to preference. I do like the cable on the JOJO a bit better than the Kailua. Versus the Truthear Zero project rate. So now it's Z Reviews versus Crin. I think when you compare build quality, the JOJO easily beats the Red because metal can literally smash plastic. But when it comes to looks, there is more depth on the faceplate of the Red, which I really like. Comparing the bass on both of them, the Red takes the win in this case as there is just more control there without much bass bloat, and you cannot really say the same with the JOJO. Mid-range, I do like how the JOJO renders mids, especially vocals. It's just creamy goodness, but I do think that the Red renders instruments in the periphery a little bit better with more details. Treble-wise, both are really similar when it comes to treble extension. And finally, in conclusion, I think that the JOJO is a good option for people who are new to the chifi game. It's really quite pretty when it comes to the chassis. There is a little bit of bloat in the mid-bass which may turn off some more experienced listeners, but for people new to the chifi game, it can come across as a little bit more dynamic until they realize the lack of resolution in the mid-bass section. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Super Chunk Super Audio Show. It's great to be back talking about audio. Yeah, but I will be on a trip again, this time around to another rather major headphone show. I hope you guys are interested to watch the coverage of that show. With that said, if you like the content so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button somewhere down below. It will help me out a lot, and yeah, it's really much appreciated. With that said, I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Let's go. Pretty good.